It's my pleasure to welcome you and to introduce our esteemed guests this evening. From the field of endurance, John Crandall. From 3D eventing, David O'Connor. And of course from driving, and our host tonight, Chester Webber. We will invite questions from the audience when we finish, but I thought we'd ask some questions first. And considering that you are from three very different disciplines, I'm going to ask you all the same question. If there was, Chester, we'll start with you because you're closest to me. If there was one thing that, if you were selling your sport to everyone here who might not be familiar with driving, what do you think would surprise them to know about your discipline?
Wow. I'm glad I've had time to review all of these questions before. What would surprise them about driving? I think that one of the most surprising things is most riders sort of have the ambition or the thought of, well, when I'm done riding with my riding career and ready to retire from that, I'll take up driving because that's a much quieter, tamer, calmer sport. And it's not until they're in their middle 60s and they take up driving that they realize that maybe they should start riding again. So the serious answer to your question is, I think that we're seeing more and more, like every other horse sport, more and more professional people who are involved in our sport. When I started the sport, 20 years ago, there were very few full-time professionals in the sport. Now there are quite a few, which is also sort of helped the level of education and the level of teaching out there. It's starting to find a lot of similarity and harmony as opposed to many different styles and things like that.
Thank you. And David?
I have a little bit probably the same version as here. It used to always be that the event horse, if it couldn't do dressage and it couldn't show jump and it couldn't race fast enough, then it had to be an event horse. I think that has really changed. Horses have now gotten very, they're more sport specific. And I think the event horse has gone. It's interesting, and our sport has really changed over the last 12 years. In 2004 was the last, what we would call that full format eventing for the cross country, where really it took an hour and a half. Talking about nutrition, and the nutritional needs were really different because we were going on a total of about a 14-mile day. Now now it's a 4.5 minute. A 4.5 mile, 12-minute day is the longest day that we really have. And so really think about it from a nutrition point, it's really changed. And our sport has really changed. It's dramatically changed here in the last 12 years. And one of the interesting things, kind of thinking from a nutrition point of view, is that really in eventing, except for probably history, from a genetic history point of view, the tying up situation is gone out of our sport, where it used to be a major part of our sport. And it used to be a major concern in our fitness. And so with the change that we have gone and gotten, we don't do the roads and tracks, we don't do the steeplechase anymore, and the show jumping has gotten much harder, and I think the dressage has gotten kind of 20% harder. The sport is becoming much more very specific about what they're looking for. And so I would probably say that probably the biggest thing is just the way that our sport has just evolved in a very short time.
Thank you. And John, what is most surprising about endurance, and how can you sell it to us?
I think that a lot of people in other disciplines, everybody should understand how fundamental the distance riding is to just equestrians and horses in general. And for that reason, it has a lot of relevance to all the other disciplines. It's kind of like it's kind of like the horsemanship stripped bare of other aspects layered over it, down to just the same elements that are behind every breed of horse, and the basics of every bit of horsemanship. It all started 6,000 years ago with somebody being motivated to crawl on a horse, and he didn't risk his life and neck to do this in the middle of the Asian steppes just because he thought it'd be fun to run around a circle. He knew this rascal would get him somewhere. and for a very long duration. And all of our breeds that evolved in the past 4,000 years since, even though they learned to do other aspects and we specialized them for different things, for driving, for this, for that, for those first 4,000 years, it was for driving very long distances. And it's very fundamental to the genetics and the core of everything that we've bred. And that's why it still has a lot of relevance to every other discipline in physiology. And so I invite everybody to come, even if your specialty in your discipline is inventing or driving or dressage, you should come here and see it applied in the historical form. Because you don't really excel at this until you become a master of blending all of those things together.